I knew they were going to laugh. I felt it the moment I stepped out of the car, the cold slicing through my coat, my hands shaking, not just from the December air, but from the weight of walking into that house alone. Denise's house never felt like a home to me. It felt like a stage, and I was always the joke. The porch lights were already on, glowing warm and welcoming for everyone but me. Through the wide front window, I could see movement, glasses clinking, heads thrown back in laughter. My husband's family gathered exactly the way they always were, loud, confident, secure in their belief that they were better than me. I stood there for a second longer than I should have, my hand hovering over the doorbell. "Don't cry, not yet." I rang it. The door flew open, and Denise stood there in her perfect Christmas sweater, pearls at her neck, lipstick untouched. Her eyes dropped immediately, not to my face, but past me. Behind me. Her smile sharpened. "Well," she said, glancing out toward the driveway, "is this a new tradition now, Alina?" I swallowed. No, Daniel's just running late. That was a lie. And Denise knew it. She stepped aside slowly, letting me in like a queen granting entry to a servant. "Oh, of course," she said loudly. "Everyone, Alina, here." The room went quiet for half a second. Then the laughter came. Not all at once. That would have been merciful. It started with Denise's sister, then a cousin, then someone muttered, "Guess she finally got the hint." Denise tilted her head and delivered the line that would replay in my mind for months. "Did you really think he'd still choose you?" The words landed harder than any slap. I felt every eye on me as I took off my coat. My hands were trembling now, no matter how hard I tried to control them. "I'm here for Christmas," I said, "just like everyone else." Denise smiled wider. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, touching my arm like she cared. "Christmas is for family." Someone snorted. I forced myself to breathe. This wasn't new. The looks, the whispers, the way Denise had spent years planting doubt in everyone's mind about my job, my background, my worth. About whether I deserved her son. Daniel had warned me before we got married. "My mom doesn't let go easily," he'd said, "but she'll come around." She never did. Instead, she waited. And tonight, she thought she'd won. I sat at the far end of the dining table, while Denise took her place at the head, Daniel's seat empty, beside her like a trophy she'd already claimed. Dinner started without him. That alone told me everything. Forks scraped against plates, wine poured freely, conversations flowed right around me, never toward me. Finally, Denise leaned back and sighed dramatically. "Well," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I suppose we can stop pretending now." My chest tightened. "Pretending what?" I asked. She smiled at me with something dangerously close to pity. That this marriage was ever going to last. Silence. Every instinct in me screamed to stand up, to leave, to protect what was left of my dignity. But I stayed. Because Daniel told me to. Before I left the house that morning, he'd held my hands, his face serious in a way I'd never seen before. "No matter what happens tonight," he'd said, "stay, don't leave early, don't defend yourself, just stay." I hadn't understood then, but I trusted him. Denise raised her glass. "To honesty," she said, "and to accepting reality." Her eyes locked on mine. "Some women are just temporary." Laughter exploded around the table. Something inside me cracked, but it didn't break. Not yet. Because deep down, beneath the humiliation and the rage and the sting of being openly discarded, there was something else. A memory. 2 nights earlier. Daniel standing in our kitchen, whispering into his phone. "Yes," he'd said, "tonight, Christmas dinner, you'll know when." At the time, I thought it was work. Now, sitting there while my mother-in-law celebrated my supposed downfall, I realized something was coming. Something big. And Denise had no idea. Halfway through dessert, the front doorbell rang. Denise frowned. "Who could that be?" she said, annoyed. We're in the middle of dinner. No one moved. The bell rang again. Then knocking. Firm, authoritative. Not friendly. My heart started pounding. Denise stood abruptly. I'll handle it. She walked toward the door, irritation written across her face. And when she opened it, her color drained. Because standing there wasn't a neighbor. Wasn't a delivery. It was 2 police officers. And behind them, my husband. Daniel stepped inside slowly, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just nodded once, like he was telling me you did exactly what I asked. Denise's voice shook. Daniel, she said, what is this? One of the officers cleared his throat. Ma'am, he said calmly, we're here regarding a formal complaint. The room was dead silent now. Every laugh gone. Every fork frozen. Daniel finally spoke. And when he did, his voice was steady. Mom, he said, you should have told them the truth. Denise stared at him, horrified. The truth about what? She whispered. Daniel looked around the table, at every single person who had laughed at me. Then back at her. About what you did to my wife. The room felt smaller the moment Daniel said my name. Not Alina, my wife. It was subtle, but it changed everything. Denise recovered first. She always did. Years of control had trained her to pivot faster than anyone else in that room. She laughed. A short, sharp laugh that didn't reach her eyes. This is ridiculous, she said, waving a dismissive hand at the officers. Daniel, what kind of stunt is this? Bringing the police to Christmas dinner. One of the officers spoke calmly. Ma'am, we're not here for theatrics. We're here because a report was filed. Denise's smile tightened. A report about what exactly? Daniel didn't look at her. He looked at me. And then he did something I didn't expect. He apologized. I should have stopped this years ago, he said quietly. I thought ignoring it would make it go away. The silence that followed was heavy, uncomfortable, dangerous. Denise snapped. Stop talking like she's a victim. She pointed at me, her finger shaking, not from fear but rage. She's the problem, Daniel. She always has been. My chest burned. I wanted to scream, to defend myself, to list every insult, every lie, every moment she'd humiliated me. But I remembered Daniel's words. Don't defend yourself. So I stayed silent. And for the first time, my silence didn't make me weak. It made her nervous. The second officer stepped forward and opened a folder. Mrs. Denise Harper, he said, reading carefully, we're investigating multiple instances of falsified communication, financial interference, and harassment. A murmur rippled through the table. Denise blinked. That's absurd. The officer continued. Specifically, emails and messages sent under Alina Harper's name to family members, employers, and third parties. My breath caught. I felt every eye turn to me again, but this time the looks were different. Confused, uncertain, suspicious, but not of me. Denise laughed again, louder now. Are you saying she didn't send those messages? The officer looked directly at her. We're saying they didn't originate from her devices. Denise's face twitched. Just once. Daniel finally turned to her. You told my aunt that Alina called you manipulative and bitter, he said evenly. You told my cousin she threatened to take me away from the family. He paused. You even told my employer that she was unstable. Gasps erupted around the table. Denise shook her head violently. I was protecting you. No, Daniel said. You were isolating her. I felt dizzy. I hadn't known all of this. I knew about the cold shoulders, the sudden job interview cancellations, the way people treated me differently for reasons I could never pinpoint. Denise had been busy. Very busy. The officer slid a printed email onto the table. Mrs. Harper, he said, Do you recognize this account? Denise glanced down and froze. Because it was hers. An old one she'd once bragged about using just for family matters. I remembered that night clearly now. She smiled over tea and said, "A woman needs to manage the narrative, Alina, especially when men get confused." At the time, I thought it was advice. It was a warning. Denise straightened her shoulders. "Even if I sent a few emails," she said coldly, "I was doing what any mother would do." Daniel's voice broke through the room like a blade. "You told people my wife stole money from you." The table exploded. "What? That's not true. Denise, say something." She looked around desperately, searching for allies. And then she looked at me. Her eyes hardened. "You manipulated him," she spat. "You turned my son against me." Something inside me finally snapped. I stood up. My voice shook, but it didn't waver. "No," I said. "You just couldn't control him anymore." The room went dead quiet. Denise stared at me like I'd slapped her. I continued, slowly, carefully, because every word mattered. "You told everyone I was temporary," I said, "but you were the one afraid of being replaced." Her lips parted. Nothing came out. The officer cleared his throat again. "There's more," he said. My heart dropped. Daniel's jaw tightened. The officer looked directly at me this time. "Mrs. Harper, we also uncovered evidence that someone attempted to redirect funds from a joint account opened shortly after your marriage." The room started spinning. I looked at Daniel. "What?" I whispered. He met my eyes, guilt written all over his face. "I didn't want to scare you," he said softly. "The bank flagged it. The trail led back here." "Back to her." Denise screamed. "This is a setup," she shouted. "She's lying. She planned this." Her sister stood abruptly. "Denise, did you do this?" Denise rounded on her. "Don't be stupid." The officer closed the folder. "We're not making any arrests tonight," he said, "but this investigation is active." He turned to Denise. "And you've been instructed not to contact Alina Harper directly or indirectly." Denise looked like the floor had vanished beneath her. A restraining order. On Christmas. Daniel moved to my side then. He didn't touch me, just stood close enough that I could feel him. Feel that I wasn't alone. Denise's voice dropped to a whisper. "You're choosing her," she said to him, "after everything I've done for you." Daniel didn't hesitate. "I'm choosing the truth." And that was when Denise said the one thing she shouldn't have. The sentence that made every single person in that room understand exactly who she was. She looked straight at me and said, "If you just stayed quiet, none of this would have happened." That was her mistake. Because suddenly, everyone saw it. The moment Denise said it, "If you just stayed quiet, none of this would have happened," something irreversible shifted in the room. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was worse. People started remembering. You could see it on their faces, the subtle narrowing of eyes, the way smiles faded, the slow realization that the discomfort they'd felt around me for years suddenly had a source. And it wasn't me. Denise seemed to sense it too. She straightened her posture, lifted her chin, and crossed her arms like a general preparing for battle. "I won't be made the villain here," she said sharply. "Not by her, not by anyone." Her sister, Aunt Marjorie, spoke before anyone else could. "Denise," she said carefully, "why would you tell me Alina tried to get you cut off financially?" My stomach dropped. I turned to Marjorie. "I never." She held up a hand. "I know that now." Denise's eyes flashed. "You're misremembering." "No," Marjorie said, reaching into her purse. "I wrote it down." She pulled out her phone, hands shaking slightly. "I keep notes," she continued. "You said Alina was working her way through the family. Your words." A low murmur spread across the table. Denise laughed, but it sounded brittle. "So now we're interrogating each other." Her cousin Ben leaned forward. You told me she leaked family issues to outsiders. Another voice joined in. You told me she was after Daniel's money. And me, someone else said, that she was trying to get you declared unfit. I felt dizzy. Each accusation felt like a shard of glass, because I'd lived with the consequences of every single lie without knowing where they came from. Denise's composure cracked. Enough, she snapped. You're all being manipulated. Daniel stepped forward. No, he said quietly. You manipulated us. That was the first time he said us. Not me versus her. Us. Denise turned on him like a cornered animal. I gave you everything, she hissed. I made sure you never needed anyone else. Daniel didn't flinch. And that's the problem, he said. The officer cleared his throat again. There is one more thing, he said. A witness came forward this afternoon. My heart stopped. Denise froze completely. Who? She demanded. The officer looked toward the hallway. A shadow moved. And then, a woman stepped into the dining room. I recognized her immediately. Lydia. Denise's former assistant. The woman who disappeared suddenly 2 years ago after, moving for family reasons. Denise's face went white. You, she whispered, you're not supposed to be here. Lydia's voice was steady, but her hands trembled. I kept copies, she said, because you told me to destroy the originals. The room erupted. What copies? Destroy what? Denise. Lydia looked straight at me. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't realize how bad it had gotten. She turned to the officers and handed them a flash drive. Emails, drafts, instructions, she said. She dictated most of them. Denise lunged forward. This is illegal, she screamed. The officers stepped between them instantly. Ma'am, one said firmly, please step back. Denise's voice broke into something raw and ugly. You don't understand, she cried. I was trying to protect my family. Lydia shook her head. No, she said, you were trying to control it. Silence fell again, but this time it was different. Heavier. Final. I looked around the table and saw it clearly now. Denise wasn't the matriarch anymore. She was exposed. Daniel turned to me then. And for the first time all night, he reached for my hand. I squeezed back hard. Denise watched us, her breathing uneven. You think this is over, she said suddenly, her voice eerily calm. You think you've won. She smiled. And that smile sent a chill straight down my spine. You don't even know what you're standing on, she said softly. Daniel stiffened. I felt it too. There was something she still believed she held. Something she thought would save her. And for the first time since the police arrived, I felt afraid, not of her words, but of what she hadn't said yet. The officer spoke. Mrs. Harper, he said, you're required to surrender all electronic devices pending investigation. Denise laughed, a hollow, broken sound. Fine, she said, take them. She reached into her purse. Paused. And then she looked directly at me. I hope you're ready, she said, because when the truth comes out. She leaned closer. You won't thank him for choosing you. My heart pounded. Daniel pulled me closer. But Denise wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking at me. Like she knew something I didn't. Denise thought she still had leverage. I could see it in the way she stood there, straight-backed, chin lifted, eyes sharp with certainty. Even with the police in her living room, even with her lies unraveling in real time. That confidence scared me more than her anger ever had. Because people like Denise don't bluff unless they believe the ground beneath them is solid. The officers escorted her toward the hallway to collect her devices. The rest of the family stayed frozen around the table, too stunned to move, too uncomfortable to speak. Daniel leaned close to me. Are you okay? He whispered. I nodded, but it wasn't the truth. My stomach churned. Denise's words echoed in my head. You don't even know what you're standing on. I followed her with my eyes as she disappeared down the hall. And that's when I noticed it. The photo. It was hanging slightly crooked near the staircase, an old family portrait I'd seen 100 times but never really looked at. Daniel as a child, Denise beside him, his father standing just a little too far away. Something about it suddenly felt wrong. Minutes passed. Then Denise came back, flanked by an officer, her phone and tablet sealed in evidence bags. But she was smiling. That same tight, knowing smile. The officer spoke. "We'll be in touch. Please remember the no-contact order." Denise nodded obediently. Then she looked at Daniel. "I did all this for you," she said quietly, "and one day you'll understand why." Daniel didn't respond. The officers left. The door closed. And just like that, the house felt emptier than it ever had. Denise exhaled slowly. "Well," she said, turning to the room, "I suppose that's my cue." She walked toward the door, paused, then turned back. Her eyes met mine. And she delivered the final blow, not loud, not dramatic, but precise. "Did he tell you?" My heart skipped. "Tell me what?" I asked. Daniel stiffened. "Mom," he said warningly, "stop." She ignored him. "Did he tell you why I hated you so much?" The room held its breath. Denise smiled sadly. "Because you were never supposed to be permanent." Daniel snapped. "That's enough." She raised a hand. "No," she said, "it's time." I turned to Daniel. "What is she talking about?" He didn't answer. And that's when I knew. Whatever this was, I was the only one who didn't know it yet. Denise walked closer, lowering her voice. "You walked into my house believing you were the problem," she said, "but you were just inconvenient." "Inconvenient to what?" I asked. Her eyes flicked to Daniel. Then back to me. "The plan." Daniel's face drained of color. "Mom," he said sharply, "don't." But it was too late. Because now, I was listening. Denise sighed like a woman, finally relieved of a burden. "He married you before I could stop him," she said, "and once that happened, I had to make sure you didn't last." The words hit me slowly. "You wanted us divorced," I said. "No," she corrected calmly. "I needed you gone." Daniel finally spoke. "She doesn't know everything," he said to his mother. "Leave." Denise smiled at him. "Then you tell her," she said, "or I will." My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. "Tell me what?" I demanded. Daniel closed his eyes. And when he opened them, I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear. "Before we met," he said slowly, "there was an expectation." I stared at him. Expectation of what? He swallowed. That suggests he would marry someone else. The room spun. Denise folded her arms, satisfied. "A business alliance," she added, "one that would have secured the family's future." I felt like I couldn't breathe. "You were supposed to be temporary," Denise continued. "A phase, a mistake he'd correct." I looked at Daniel, my voice barely audible. "You didn't tell me." "I was trying to protect you," he said desperately. "From what?" "From her. Or from the truth." Denise picked up her coat. "You ruined everything," she said to me, "and I couldn't allow that." She turned to Daniel. "Now you get to live with what you chose." She walked out. The door closed behind her. No applause. No victory speech. Just silence. I stood there, shaking. Daniel reached for me. I stepped back. "I need to understand," I said. "Did you ever plan to leave me?" "No," he said immediately. "Never." "But you let her hurt me," I said, "because it was easier than fighting her." His silence answered me. I nodded slowly. That hurt more than any lie Denise ever told. I picked up my coat. "Elena," he said, "please." I looked at him one last time. "You chose me," I said quietly. But you waited until it almost destroyed me. I walked out into the cold. The porch lights flickered behind me. And for the first time that night, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Because Denise thought the story ended with her walking away. She was wrong. It was just beginning. And next time, I wouldn't be staying quiet.